All right, ladies and gentlemen, please put your hands together for these two gentlemen, Sean Roberts and Kyle Brown, talking about the role of crypto in South African sport. Thank you very much.
Are we ready? Yeah. This is great to be here, guys. I think a big round of applause for Sonia and her team at Bitcoin Events. This is absolutely incredible. Thanks, Sonia, and thanks for having us. Kyle Brown, X7's captain. Nice shirt, bud.
Worst picture on the face of the planet. Sorry, I could have done better than that.
How did you get involved in crypto? Why are you here?
Interesting. I think lockdown played a major part in that. I think like me and a billion other people on the planet started trading crypto in your spare time and starting to dig into a lot of the projects and start to figure out what it's all about and realizing that this is the next frontier and it's encroaching more and more in our lives and how we're going to find it as a big value add in life going forward.
Yeah, I think my journey as well, I think out of mine is more necessity. So a bit of background, ex-professional soccer player, played for 16 years, very privileged to have traveled the world and played the game. I retired quite prematurely in 2014, went traveling with my beautiful wife, and we came back and I started my own sports agency. And so I predominantly look after professional sportsmen. But during a hard lockdown, a lot of sponsors, as you know, pulled out of sports, which affected my business massively. And I sort of re-looked at this model and thought, well, one day sponsors are going to come piling back in. And I really want to be part of this game, but how am I going to differentiate myself from all the bigger agencies that represents the telcos, the car manufacturers, et cetera, et cetera. So I looked at what was happening overseas and who are these crazy guys investing money into sports, and it was all the major crypto exchanges. So over the past 18 months, I've gone to all the major exchanges and said I represent all the rights holders, which was absolute rubbish. Went to the rights holders, said I represented all the major exchanges, which was even more rubbish. But now things have started to come to fruition, you know. So privileged to have brokered a handful of deals already, which I was going to speak about today, but unfortunately I can't.
Introduced to Sean the Imposter.
And we've seen these deals happening overseas. We've seen how active Crypto.com have been, very active in the UFC, Formula One, to name a few. And obviously the FIFA World Cup that's coming up, the renaming to the FTX Arena. Obviously Binance with Cristiano Ronaldo, so well done to Hannes and the team there. And I wish I had this slide, Carl, about the Euros, and it's so interesting to see the different sponsors from the Euros of 2016, where you obviously had the McDonald's, the energy drinks, the hotel groups. But now in 2020, when you saw it, you had likes of Bookings.com, you had TikTok, you had Alipay. So slowly you're seeing the fintech move into the sports sponsorship stuff.
So Sean, I mean, you're talking about having these conversations with crypto companies and sports teams. There's obviously been a fair bit of pushback by certain different sports elements. What's the sentiment like around crypto invading the sports world?
Well, I wouldn't say it's invading. I mean, just the mere fact we've got representatives here from Kaizer Chiefs, Sundowns are here, Cricket South Africa's here, the Stormers are here. So the conversations I have been open, been interesting and welcoming from both sponsor and the rights holders. So it's only a matter of time till this starts snowballing, I feel.
And why are these sponsorship elements different? I mean, you're looking at the Metaverse and NFTs, and why are these particularly different?
Yeah, I think it also, you must remember, it's bringing in a brand new revenue stream into sports, which has never, 2 years ago, this conversation would have been very different. It probably wouldn't have happened. So there's a whole new revenue stream. Obviously, the major part is the fan engagement, which we'll touch on in a bit. And obviously, crypto in Africa is rife. It speaks to the Gen Z population, which is obviously sports central. And it's, like I say, it's a time bomb waiting to explode, I feel.
You actually, I mean, you just touched on fan engagement quite quickly, and I think that probably brings us to our second little segment of our talk, where we're looking at NFTs, how to improve the fan experience through all aspects of the sporting engagement.
Yeah, I mean, Deloitte predicted by the end of 2022 that NFT trade or sales through trades would have gone over $2 billion by the end of the year, which is mind-blowing. I do believe we've hit the NFT boom, so not saying that the NFTs are not going anywhere in sports, but the boom has been and gone. We've seen some disastrous rights holders go into the NFT space where it's been a complete flop, and we can bring up Liverpool with their Heroes release of their NFTs. It was nothing short of a disaster. But if you look at someone like FC Barcelona, where they waited patiently, they waited till the end of the season, of this season 2022, and they launched their Masterpiece NFT, and it sold for just under 700,000 US.
We were having a conversation outside where I think that potentially NFTs as a collectibles, NFTs as ownership of an image might be a bridge too far for retail to be picking up right now. And what we spoke about was NFTs playing a more functional role to garner adoption amongst people. So we actually chatted a little bit about the entire sort of line from top to bottom of the fan experience. Run me through an idea of what an NFT, what part they would play, transport, ticketing, security, all of that.
Well, let's start with the ticketing, because we chatted yesterday about the Wales Springbok game, and even your mates got to the gates and their tickets were counterfeited. So automatically, if that's alleviated on the blockchain through NFT, and through fan tokens in the NFT, we can now add different layers to that. So there could be transport for the fans. There could be a Coke and popcorn when they arrive for them. Depending how deeply layered that NFT or fan token goes, there could be a VIP section at the games that they can sit at. There could be a meet and greet with their favorite player afterwards. What is happening beautifully now at Paris Saint-Germain is that the fan now is getting to vote on the message on the captain's armband for each game. The fan can now vote how their team bus would be.
So you're saying these are the holders of fan tokens, these ones that are bought in long term, they gain voting rights.
Correct. Well, that's the biggest fish, Carl, in this space, is that the gap between the fan and the rights holder now is closed. And we're now moving from a passive fan more to an active fan.
I suppose this also opens up the doors to the metaverse of sport and broadcast. And there's going to be a tough discussion on broadcast rights and about how to broadcast the game in the metaverse. But I mean, there's some really interesting aspects of expanding reach. Where you take a local club like the Stormers, maybe, that plays here, that has a physical location here, but has fans all around the world. And instead of having the capacity of 50,000 on one weekend, your Metaverse stadium has fairly unlimited capacity.
Correct. And how do those sponsorship rights work? So you can imagine a DHL Stormers here, for example, but in the Metaverse, it could be a Binance Stormers, it could be a Luna, it could be a Vela, it could be whatever. But it's such an interesting space that we can talk for hours on. But again, there has been a real-world example of that, where AC Milan played Fiorentina this season, where they needed to access fans in Central America, and they did that through the Metaverse, and it was a complete success.
Amazing.
Yeah, but I don't know how the broadcasting rights worked around that, but it's very, very impressive and interesting.
The sort of the last segment of our conversation is around data and sovereign ownership of the image rights of each player. So as they sign on, they collectivize them, they on-sell them to SA Rugby then on-sells them to SuperSport. And that was the bulk of salary payments through SuperSport payment. I mean, you've got a fairly different experience in football. Huh?
Yeah, I think I had a chat with Jess earlier in the week from Chiefs. I think the rights here belong to the team, and an example with Kaizer Chiefs, they pay good money to use those image rights, but they have to use them. And if the PSL wants access to the image or the images, they come through the teams as well. But it works very, very differently to the way rugby does.
So what piques my interest in this whole conversation is, again, looking back at fractional ownership. So if there was a way to create further fan engagement by carving out a percentage of those image rights, it would essentially be an investment into your team, an investment into certain players, then you could take part in the revenue that the broadcaster pays for those image rights. That's where that gets interesting.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, that's a game changer.
There is, I mean, talking about investment in teams and players, again, I haven't explored it well enough because it's sort of come across my plate quite recently, but there's a company called Virtual Stacks.
Yeah. Who are here, actually. We met them earlier.
I think the guys from Virtual Stacks are here. They're at the back there somewhere. Basically, what I get from this is you've got a player that needs to raise some funding, and as a player, you can now tap into your community to help you raise funding. And where, I mean, I understand the tradability of the cards, but where I think it's really cool, Sean, is you got a young player who, instead of asking for donations and charity from those around him, can say, listen, here's something that is tangible. Here's something you can invest in me. Yeah. You can help me get the best coaching out there. You can help me afford the best strength and conditioning. You can help me get the best medical so that I can get onto the field and I can strength and conditioning coach. Can I have my previous results? Speak to the analysis department. Can I have a highlight reel? Speak to your doctor. Can I have my medical history? Through PlayerWise, with the onboarding of that and all that information gets put onto the portal, that along with the contract negotiation becomes a marketplace for young players to expose themselves to different industries, different coaches, different agents all around the world. I think that wildly revolutionizes the reach of a single player to different clubs.
But the back end of that, if you flip that on its side, a Carl Brown at 34, you wouldn't want your medical history put on there, right? I mean, you can't get away from that.
My medical history was fantastic at the age of 34. Hugely investable.
Yeah. But you speak of monetizing data, Carl. How would that work in an athlete's lifespan?
So right now, just a quick example, there's a company called Sportable who puts a chip inside a rugby ball. There's a company called Shot Tracker who puts a similar chip inside the basketball and the NFL ball. Yep. And they're generating all kinds of different data. All right? I think you can let your imagination run wild as to where that's going. The one that really got me interested was there was a game in 2017, a rugby league game in Australia, State of Origin game 2. In the final minutes of the game, there was a conversion to win the game. Jonathan Thurston has a heart rate belt. His heart rate is being broadcast on the screen. Can you imagine the insights and the engagement you get from fans? Now that's clearly valuable.
Wow, yeah, sure.
But valuable to who?
Yeah.
Does the player not own his own heart rate data? But when he's giving that away up front, he doesn't realize that until it's there on the screen. Everybody talks about how awesome it was to see how he brought his heart rate down in that final kick. He can monetize that. Surely you should be able to. I mean, again, further conversation. Yeah. And it's probably going to irritate some of the broadcasters or the rights holders.
Yes, absolutely.
But those conversations need to be had.
Absolutely. Deep dive in there for sure. I mean, we speaking of transparent and honest rights holders, I believe FIFA are opening their old bank. What's going on there?
So FIFA, and this has been in the works since 2019, are opening a bank, essentially a central clearinghouse. Yeah. FIFA have decided that the flow of funds through international player transfer, professional transfer, is something too good to miss out on. And the way they're packaging this is they're going to take 5% of all those funds that are transferred and allow that to be reimbursed to development clubs. Yep. So they're saying, well, if you were involved in the hand of developing a player from the age of 13 to 22, you can take part in that 5% payment.
Sure.
Along the way, they are also probably taking their little cut.
So a classic use case for blockchain technology, I would imagine. The classic.
Ideally. You're talking from the general public's consensus. As FIFA, I would run as far away from a good governance blockchain-based model and use a centralization model. I mean, ideally, they could really add a lot of credibility just to the image that FIFA has currently clouded in allegations of corruption and mistrust and misuse of funding. Sure. Where here they could use agents, players, clubs, auditors, all as validators along the process for this the system.
Make it seamless, in essence.
Make it seamless and objective, transparent.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, as you can see, there's so many opportunities in the space. We're still at its infancy stage. Is there anything else you want to add that's on your notes?
I mean, I know you've got a little story about identity and how we can curb identity fraud.
Yeah, it's an interesting one. I mean, there's a great example with one of the world's greatest players, George Weah, who's now the president of Liberia, I believe. There was a player called Ali Dia who conned Southampton, one of the Premier League teams at the time, that he was in fact George Weah's cousin. Did so to the extent where he got a full-time contract at a Premier League club, lied through his teeth, got on the starting field against Leeds United. The coaches looked at him and, quote unquote, looked like Bambi on ice. So if that is happening at Premier League level, I'm not saying it happens now, but you can imagine what's happening in Africa in terms of identity. I know Michael spoke about identity before, but there's such an opportunity here. It's just to rectify that. And I think Vitalik Buterin has often spoke about soul-bound tokens, which the owners cannot trade or sell because they're intrinsically linked to your identity. So we're definitely moving in that space. How long that takes, but we're definitely moving there.
Yeah, sure. I mean, I think just to wrap up, I think what I'm quite keen to see is the functional use of blockchain, crypto, NFT in the sporting world. And I think to create more adoption in it, we've got to add real value.
Yes.
As opposed to your Liverpool example, where they're just trying to sort of money grab by offering a bunch of NFTs.
And I think that's important in my business, is to make sure that I align the correct strategic partners with the rights holders. Correct. Because this is not just about money. This is about how to add value to the fans. And yes, there's money involved, obviously, but just don't take it away. But it's aligning the correct strategic partners. And to conclude, we're going through a massive transformation in world sports. There's so much opportunity for those who embrace it. So, yeah, thank you very much.
Thanks for having us here.
Cheers.